Welcome into another edition of the Sports Edge Podcast. I'm your host, Commissioner Dan Stanzik. A thrill, as always, to be joined by two-time league winner Justin the Guru Eisner. Big win for you this week over the champ Guru. You got to be riding high tonight.
Yeah, I am. Huge win. And I've got a chance to keep my Zanzarella 1-4 prediction on the books. I need a big step up from Kess, but yeah, really excited to get that second win coming into a big week, which we'll talk about later.
There you go. We tape this Wednesdays 9:30. That has been our agreed upon time. Tuesdays I thought would be better, but you got hockey, who knows what, with your children. And we do Wednesdays at 9:30 because the lone show my wife and I watch together, she actually falls asleep every week before it ends. I have to fill her in on how it ends the next morning. We watch The Challenge together, which is why we tape Wednesdays at 9:30. That show airs on MTV from 8 to 9:30. A couple of weeks ago, The Challenge wasn't on because it was the VMAs. I texted you that we could tape earlier because the VMAs were on. I felt like I was in sophomore year of high school, but alas, here we are. And
I have to admit that I didn't even know they were still filming The Challenge until you told me that's why
season 40. Season 40. It's they're bringing back all the old cast. It's been great.
Yeah, I don't remember the first one. I think I watched the first challenge.
Did you? I don't think I got into it until probably 16, 17, somewhere there. Maybe it was the 20s. I'd have to go back and actually look to find the real answer to that. But there's been some great moments. It's a good show. Mock me all you want. Who cares? We're gonna we got a special guest that's gonna join us in a minute, but we're gonna get back to our roots. We're gonna do Suds and Duds of the week. It's brought to you by Busch Light, the beer college freshmen buy when they're trying to class things up. Just a touch from Keystone. Busch Light. Guru, plenty of options. Who's your stud of the week this week?
I mean, I feel like there's only one answer to this question, although I wrote a couple just in case.
I got to be honest. I only did one for both the stud and the dud. And I said, if you come up with the same one as me, I don't care. These are my studs and duds. I didn't have options. So I'll let you go first for this one. And I'm going to go first for the next one. But who's your stud of the week?
Okay. Well, the stud has to be Juwan Jennings, right? 41 points off a waiver wire pickup from the Guru, $7 pickup. Turns that into 41 points and basically is the difference between a win and a loss against the former champ. So I had to go with Juwan Jennings. That's just a massive output in a flex spot for a pickup.
I'm proud of you. You know that? I'm proud of you for picking a player on your own team as stud of the week. That's well done by you. That's almost the equivalent of Arthur Blank inducting himself into the Ring of Honor for the Falcons. It's almost on that level. I'm proud of you. My stud of the week, I'm going with Amari Cooper. We both preached patience for him last week. He delivered instantaneously on Sunday with a touchdown in the first play from scrimmage for the Browns against the Giants. He added a second touchdown later, finished with 24 points to help Robbie dominate the Zix. And listen,
that was my number 2, Stanzik. So
good. There you go. All right, we're on the same page. I thought that was a little off the beaten path, but we mentioned him last week.
No, I'll give you my off the beaten path one though. This one's kind of interesting.
Oh, who you got?
I think this is worth it. It doesn't make any sense because this person lost and this person also scored the least amount of points this week, but is the stud of the week the Hoban 2 tight end strategy? Because
Dallas Goedert was great. I thought about doing Goddard. I did think about
it. Dallas Goedert in the flex scored 22 points.
It's true.
And only Brock Purdy scored more points in that entire matchup than Dallas Goedert. So maybe we're just wrong again about this.
Starting 2 tight ends, teams are now 1-3 on the season. There's our tight end update. But listen, I decided to do studs and duds on Sunday night because of one thing, and I am sticking to it, even though the outcome of a matchup changed based on the results on Monday night. The dud of the week for me was none other than Steve Curtis. And talk about getting back to our roots. I saw his score on Sunday night, and I was flabbergasted. I know we don't like talking about other fantasy leagues, but I'm a Kyron Williams owner in another league. I knew he scored 3 touchdowns, so I saw Steve score. I said there is no way he only has 70 points. I checked his roster. I saw he left Kyron on the bench. I don't care that he beat Walsh anyway. The dud of the week is Steve. Kyron Williams is a must start. He missed 5 games last year, still finished as RB6. Only Christian McCaffrey scored more points per game than him. Dud of the week, Steve Curtis. Who do you have, Guru?
I mean, I love it. I love a Steve Curtis dud. There's nothing better than that. I had a couple. There was a couple actually really good options here. I'll just go top to bottom. Tony Pollard, 4.4 points in the Hathaway loss. Hathaway
0-3. Wow.
3. He only lost by 4 points and had Tony Pollard, who should be getting more than 4 points, only get 4.4 points. So that was a tough one. Second place for me, Rashid Shaheed, 0 points.
Let's not talk about that one. Let's keep him
0 points. I think we have to talk about that one. Commish loses to Robbie. I wrote by a lot. I didn't do the math.
It was a bloodbath. Yeah,
that's what I wrote.
Yeah.
And then my last option in that same Walsh-Steve matchup was Jameson Williams, 0.7 points, and Walsh only lost by 8. So that could have been a swing spot if we had somebody put any production up in that flex spot. Jameson Williams, 0.7 points. Those are my 3 duds of the week.
Look at that. Look at us. We're back to our roots. Studs and duds of the week. They're back. And I would say this person's back, but I don't think they've ever been on the pod before. I don't think they've ever watched the pod before this season. Robbie Guidotti joins us, 2020 SEFFL champion. Team is atop the league. They're 3-0, fresh off waxing the Stanzics. Robbie, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good to be here, boys. And no, I absolutely did not watch a single podcast last year because Dan was like, "Oh, it's on Zoom," and I was just decided I'm not going to figure that out. And I spent enough time in college being Dan's co-host, so I wasn't sure if I needed any more of it. But I've got some FOMO now. I regret missing last season because this season's been great. I'm very excited to be joining you boys tonight.
Well, let's start right there. Honestly, last year you made just 9 roster moves. Famously, did not spend a single dollar of your waiver budget. This year, you've already made 3 moves, which puts you on pace for at least 14 moves. We're 3 weeks in, 14 regular season weeks. Your team's 3-0. You've spent $16 of your waiver allotment. You're on the podcast that you didn't watch last year. So just simply, what changed from last year to this year?
I had another kid last year, like right before the season. Had to adjust to 2-kid life. So, and also we don't talk about other fantasy leagues, but I dropped one of my fantasy leagues this year. So I got a little more time to focus.
You know what? We can talk about that. Which one did you drop?
It was
let's name names.
So it was somebody. It was like a tangential group of friends kind of thing, like high school friends introduced me to this other group, and I was like, oh yeah, like, it'd be cool to be in, and I got like suckered in. And then as soon as I saw an out, I took it because somebody else dropped out. I was like, oh well, you guys need an even amount of team. So I don't think it's anybody that you guys know.
Okay.
But there was no hesitation.
So you're prioritizing our league finally.
100%. Look, and just so you guys know, like, people talk about obviously 2020 was, pandemic and everything like that. For me, I always say that was a pretty good year. And I tell people I got a dog, I got married, I got an elevated partner, and I won my fantasy league. And my wife is like, stop putting that last one in there. Like,
that's the kicker. That's the kicker. That's like you're playing poker.
Yeah, I was like,
you win on the kicker. I got married in 2022. I didn't win the league though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't tell me what's important, okay? Yeah. So this is great. It's good, good to get some wins. I did feel a little bit silly when you guys kept saying, like maybe it was last week, like, yeah, well, it's not that hard to make the playoffs in this league. I've missed it for the last 3 years, so I felt like Billy Madison at the end, where he's like, I know graduating high school is easy for a lot of people, but it's really hard for me. So trying to turn it around.
Guru, you got anything on Robbie? Maybe on the shit talk we laid on him earlier in the year?
I'm happy to see Robbie active on the pod this year. Probably good timing. I was going to print the Robbie is good shirts. I think we need Robbie is good. Like, that's all I kept thinking.
It's early. It's early. I've got depth issues. So
that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I don't know if the whole league knows this, but Robbie, you're a Giants fan like myself. So I do have to ask selfishly, how did you feel when you saw that I traded up in the draft to number 2 to take Malik Neighbors ahead of you at number 3?
I was a little disappointed because I would have liked to have Malik, but at the same time, I thought, all right, well, he still has Daniel Jones throwing to him. And after that week 1 performance, I was like, Dan shot himself in the foot. Obviously, the last 2 weeks have been very different. I had Rome on my bench this last week, so I took Rome instead. Left him on my bench this week. He'll be in the starting lineup this week, barring injury. But yeah, it was a tough one to watch, especially he was lighting up the scoreboard this week on me. Luckily, I was able to pull one out against you there, Danny.
Yeah, pull one out. You dominated me. We're gonna get to some Fairfield questions in a second here. Guru, can you pull up Robbie's team quickly, just so you know what I'm talking about here? And hopefully I'll show this on video for you guys watching. What is the image you used, Robbie, for your team logo on Yahoo? Like, am I missing something? Am I supposed to know who this is?
That's Britney Spears.
I was going to say, I think it's Britney Spears.
Yeah.
That was what I was about to say. Yeah, it is.
What is that from?
I think it might be the Give Me More video.
Oh.
Wow.
That's next level.
Look at you.
There's layers to this.
Wow. I'm disappointed in myself. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't know if that's something I'm supposed to know. I couldn't figure it out. I was staring at it today. I'm very confused. Who is this? It looks like a man.
I thought it was Britney, but I felt like if you told me something else, I would have just believed it because I wasn't 100% sure. But I was like, I think it's Britney. But
my guess was Adam Lambert.
I can see that.
I'm honestly, I'm serious. I'm like, why is that the logo? Like, there's got to be an explanation.
Take a nosedive. I will change it to Adam Lambert.
That's a good plan.
Going south. Yeah,
that's a good plan.
I'll make that switch.
All right, it's time to give the people what they want. Let's talk about the good old days. I have mentioned on numerous occasions how great our radio show was back in the day. Two-parter here. What do you remember most about Thirsty Thursdays with Robbie and Dan, or Dan and Dave, or Bob and Dave, or whatever the show ended up being, introed by, the one, the only Jubalinks? And number two, Guru has been my partner for a year plus here. You were my partner for a while on radio. This is a podcast. You got to give him some advice on working with me, and then give us a story from our old radio days together.
So I'll start with the advice first, because I think my favorite memory is fantastic. So I want to kind of say that. So, and I think you might know what I'm thinking of, but
it may be something we alluded to on the pod last year, is what I think was where I think you're going. But yeah, probably. Tips, like Dan kind of mentioned, you want to have a Jamaican man introduce the pod. That's the easiest way to do it, because for those that don't know, when we were on WVOF 88.5, the voice of the Beast, the voice of Fairfield, they let people from the community also host radio stations, or also host on that radio station. So like, we went from like community members to students to community members to students. So our lead in on Thursdays, our time slot, I think it was 12 to 2. Robbie, does that make sense? 11 to 1, something like that. I think 12 to 2. 12 to 2, yep. The guy in front of us was a Cuban man named Jubalinks. And I say Cuban, that's an assumption. I'm guessing there. I'm not positive. He played a lot of reggae. So maybe that's why I assumed he was Jamaican. His name was Jubalinks, and he was like very supportive of us, and like really wanted to give a good lead in, as a good radio host would do. And he asked us for our names. We said, it's Thirsty Thursdays with Robbie and Dan. And he screwed up our names every other week. One time it was Robbie and Dave. One time it was Dave and Dan. One time it was Bob and Danny. Like, he never got it right. But yeah, so you gotta have Jubalinks introduce you.
Yeah, that's step one. The other one is if you could bring your mixed CD with you to the studio. Because Dan and I wouldn't actually like play any, like we wouldn't bring our entire catalog. We would just make one mix during the week, and then we would just show
off
that. And people would call, be like, "Hey, could you play this song?" We're like,
"Nope."
Yeah, next week for sure. Like, definitely. Like, we just got to put this on the pod. Also, get Tim Burge to call in from a chopper.
Yeah.
Do this sound effect. Like, he's calling in the report. So those would be my biggest tips.
Your stories, they need explanation though. Like, if no one else has heard this, like Guru, when he references having Tim Burge in a chopper, Tim Burge would call in from our dorm room. Tim and I lived together, obviously freshman year, and the show was played on channel 65 on internal TV, so you could watch our radio show, because God knows who was listening to it. So everyone on our floor, or most people on the floor, not everyone on the floor, I'm sure maybe a few people on our floor, would turn it on and watch Robbie and I play our mix CDs back and forth. This was back at the time where John Chaney tried to fight John Calipari. And he was upset about Calipari putting a goon in the game. And he kept referencing a goon. And so Tim Burge called in, did a chopper noise from the WVOF chopper, and was trying to spot the goon, and was touring all around the Temple University campus, looking for the goon live from the chopper. We had late breaking information on that.
Robbie mentioned FOMO from not listening to the podcast. I've been having serious FOMO for having not listened to this radio show that's been going on for the past. It started last week or 2 weeks ago when I got to watch that YouTube clip. I can't believe that I have not been watching this. Also, just on that is classic that you had the mix CD and people were requesting stuff. All I can think of, it feels like the movie phone episode of Seinfeld. Like,
why did you just tell me the name of the movie you want to watch?
Do you mean this song by this artist? Sure, we can play that one.
Listen, you can listen to any song you want as long as it's one of the 32 we already put onto the CD. That was the policy. Yeah. And speaking of that video that you guys shot out last week, that it was on YouTube.
Yeah, you're a part of that.
Was I on that? I didn't hear.
You're on there. The audio is way off. Your voice is way low, as is Zanz's. I don't know. This was 2000.
Well, look, in John's defense,
great.
That was.
Yeah. Oh my God. You and Zanzara both did it in his defense, and you didn't defend Glance at all. It was great.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was the opposite. It was like he literally made fun of him after saying. I think if I remember correctly, Zanz's was way worse than Robbie's. Like, Robbie's also. Yeah. Category, but Sanders was so far down the other way. Anyway, I'm having
John's was essentially in my client's defense, he's definitely guilty. So it's basically I'm not sure you know what that word means.
Shocking that you ended up the lawyer and not him. Shocking.
Yeah. Funny how it works. Robbie, you and I famously met freshman year, second floor Jokes Hall You, me, four league members. You, me, Zan's, Cass, all on that floor. Give us one of your favorite memories on something that happened that year.
Oh, geez. I mean, there was a lot going on. The first one that jumps out to my mind would be Max and John with the London Bridge.
Yeah, they're both married men now. Let's leave it at that, maybe.
Yeah, well, they were married in another sense that
yes, they were working together.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were working
plugging some holes.
Got it.
Yes, that was good. Also, just a very underrated thing that I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but John and Caitlin Hemmer, like at the start of freshman year, like kind of had like a little thing, and John would walk her home every night, like one floor up, and we would play Semisonic Closing Time every time.
That's
and we would sing, I know who I want to take John home, or something like that. And we just sing it to
then they played that song at the arena after basketball games, and I would yell to Xander, I'd be like, where's Hemmer? Where is she? John, bring her home.
My only memory of her is very famous intramural volleyball team captained by the Commish. It's Hemmer
the Sledgehammers.
The Sledgehammers just crushing that song in warm-ups. Fantastic. One of my favorite intramural teams was whenever the Sledgehammers came to town.
We were pretty feisty, that team, if I remember. Robbie, speaking of Jogs too, as the real ones called it, did you know that Jason Apostolides and Katie Phelps had a child?
Dude, I saw that on Instagram. I had
amazing, right?
I thought something was like my phone was not working. Was that like planned? Was that?
This feels like it was like if we're both single and we're 35, let's get married and have a kid thing. But I don't know.
And they actually did it.
I haven't spoken to either of them in years, obviously, but I did see that. And I'm here for the Fairfield love. Guru, you're a Fairfield couple. You're a member of a Fairfield couple, so I'm all for it. But this is like a post Fairfield. This is well, I mean, I guess they knew each other in Fairfield. This isn't like a Ben Welch, Sarah Kelly situation who met at the 5-year reunion, which is crazy, and then he got married and have kids. Do you not know that, Robbie? That's a whole
entirely true. We introduced them at a Guru's back in town in New York City. That's how.
Oh. Okay, that's a detail I did not have.
Anniversary, right?
We'd make a lot of phone calls like, hey, meet us up. We're going to come and just try to get everybody together. And we kind of had multiple groups of people come together, and Ben and Sarah met that night.
Look at that. I assume they met at the reunion. Silly me. Either way, I'm here for a good Fairfield couple. But we will keep things moving as opposed to just me randomly interviewing Robbie, someone I've known since 2004. Let's play a little fill in the blank. Guru, you can play as well. Maybe I'll throw in some answers too. But we're going to stick with the Fairfield theme here. Guru, I know you're going to like this one because I know a lot of our friend groups kind of shared this thing that we did. But Robbie, we'll start with you. Your favorite nickname that you knew someone by in college was blank.
All right. So there was a lot of good ones. Going back to jokes too, Johnny B, right? Greg Anastas we just decided there's an A team and a B team. And we decided Greg was the king of the B team. And we called him Johnny B to his face. Like, which made it really fucked up. So that's
you'd like be in one of our rooms, like John. We're like, this is an 18 meeting. You gotta get out of here, Johnny B.
Yeah, so that's in my top three. The other one was Alyssa McMahon. We called Magellan because she knew her way around our house. I think she hooked up with 4 out of the 7 guys in there, so that was good. But the ultimate one, and I've told this one to I tell this to everybody. My dad thinks this is hilarious. Ultimate one, Carly Coleslaw. And I think Seamus gave her the nickname. And the explanation is she was at every party. Nobody really knew how she got there. Nobody was particularly excited about it. But when you're fucked up and at the end of the night there's nothing left, you go, yeah, I'll have some coleslaw.
I'll take the coleslaw.
Guru, what do you got?
That was my favorite.
I know you got a good nickname for me.
Yeah.
Oh man, we counted one night and a long time ago, and thankfully we considered writing them down. Thankfully we didn't, although now I wish kind of we did because I was frantically trying to remember some of them. But we got to, I think, 80 nicknames for people. And I'll give you a couple good ones. I liked the ones, so we had a lot of ones where like it caused us to go into a little bit of a shtick. One of them was we had Hot But Not, where I believe it
like
was
hot from far but not from close, like one of those.
We could never decide if she was hot or not. It was Kate McCann.
Oh.
And somebody would go, I mean, she's kind of hot. And then somebody else would go, yeah, but like kind of not. And so we would just go back and forth. It would go on forever.
Feels like Dwyer's a part of this conversation.
Dwyer, yeah. I'll give you another one that we loved. Speaking of shticks, was we had one called Birthday Surprise. This was.
Oh, I know who this is.
You know what I'm talking about? She was a year younger than us, I think, or maybe 2. She kind of looked like Laura Dunn, but not as good looking.
Lauren Farrell is her name.
Okay. Her eyebrows were way up here.
Yep.
And she always looked surprised. So we called her birthday surprise.
Tremendous.
And when we would be sitting in the cafeteria and she would come in, someone would spot her, and the game we would play was we would go around kind of like questions in Kings when you had to like not be the one that messed up and keep asking, and we would have to predict why she was excited. And so somebody would go, I can't believe there's the chicken again today. And somebody else would go, there's so many people in here. And then somebody else would go, she's wearing that shirt again. And we would just keep going around until somebody screwed up or laughed too loud. And that was birthday surprise. So that was a really good one. One of my favorites, the other group that had a lot of these nicknames was Murph and the grade above us. So, Murph, those guys. They had one that I really liked, which was the law of diminishing returns. Which was every time they saw this girl, she looked worse than the previous time they saw her. So that was another really good one. Last one I'll give you was, I don't know if you remember Allison Black. She was in our grade. She wasn't whatever. Reason why was Ben Welch, big Ben Welch heavy podcast, by the way.
Who knew?
She would always like suck Ben in, and she would never she would give him the time of day, and she would like friend zone him all the time. So we used to call her the black hole. She would suck him in, do the black hole, but never, put out or turn into anything. So that was a good one too. So we had a lot of really, really mean ones also that I won't.
Yeah.
But those were some of the funny ones that had shticks associated.
Tremendous. My favorite one I'll throw at you is the now Mrs. Tim O'Brien, Laura Dunn. I loved having nicknames for people and then actually getting to meet them. We called her Walks with a Purpose.
Walking with a Purpose. Yeah.
That was always my favorite one. Question 2, Guru, we'll start with you for this one. The last current or former Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager you saw in person was blank.
This might surprise you unless you know the story, but it's my rival who I'm playing this week. It's Steve Curtis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do tell.
I was in California coaching hockey, and we were able to get a bite to eat and catch up and have a couple beers.
Are your nemesis? Our nemesis.
No, it was rivalry night at the bar.
Should end the podcast right now in principle. I got my old radio co-host kick you off. Pick right up. Robbie, who's the last one you saw in person?
That'd be Johnny Z. So I'm at the end of August. Little third birthday party for my daughter, Bluey themed. His kids were Bluey gear. Before that was Maddie K.
I was hoping it was Maddie K, and you could recount the story. Are you aware of the story? I'm sure you are.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. So it was random. Right before Dan sent out the initial email for the league, I was at a bar in White Plains and on a Wednesday afternoon.
As one does.
As one does, with another attorney kind of thing. And I walk into this place where I don't really go that much. And the first person I see when I walk in was this very familiar looking person. It wasn't Maddie K. Spoiler. It was actually, but it took me a second. I didn't really place her until I sat down and I realized it was Jess Hackett, Maddie K's ex-girlfriend. So I'm like, that's kind of random. So like Maddie K was on my brain. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I look and I just see somebody walking past the bar and turns in. And I immediately am like, Matt, what's going on? It's a Wednesday fucking afternoon.
And that was Maddie K that walked there.
And that was Matt. And then he comes over, he sat down, had a couple beers. He's like, by the way, did you see who was sitting over there? It was Jess Hackett. I was like, yeah, no, I saw. So it was a wild afternoon. The guy who I work with who was there with me was like, what is going on? But yeah, Matt was there. Just he had to go like Warby Parker to get glasses, but first he was stopping to buy a 4-pack, which by the way I didn't think of this till after. Totally ridiculous. Why would he get the 4-pack before he went to the mall? He was just walking around the mall with a 4-pack.
I think he had some time to kill. I don't know, man. Doctors work in mysterious ways here.
It's true. Maybe I would with Jess Hackett. I blew it up.
I would not. Yeah, maybe it was a rendezvous. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would not do the Jess Hackett story justice. We're gonna have to wait for Kess to join the pod to tell the Jess Hackett story. It is a great one. There is about 4 people in the world that I think remember the story. Robbie, you're probably one of them. But Guru, I would not be able to do it properly. The last former current manager I saw was obviously Tim Burge. A couple weeks ago, played golf. See him quite a bit. We don't live that far away from each other. Your answers are obviously better than mine. Guru, we're going to start with this one. This was tailor-made for you. The highlight of your intramural career at Fairfield was blank.
All right. So I broke this into 2 categories. One was an individual achievement and one was a team achievement.
Wow.
Yeah. So individual.
Feel free to fast forward here, guys.
It's kind of a funny one. Remember when we had dodgeball for a while? I can't remember if that like stuck or not, but one of the rules of dodgeball was like, if you threw it into the basketball hoop, then everyone came off the bench.
I don't remember that, but that's a good rule.
One rule we played that. I don't know if it had to do with what court you're on or whatever, but I was down by myself with whatever dodgeball team I was playing on, and I threw the half court shot and got it in, and everybody came off the bench and we won, so that was kind of cool. And then I can't remember if it was freshman year or sophomore year, but the softball, I won the men's A softball, which is obviously like a coveted
the Holy Grail.
Yeah, it was the big one, so that has to be the team achievement for sure.
Robbie, what do you got?
So was on the men's soccer champion team, junior, senior year. Had I played one season of floor hockey, scored like 3 seconds into my first game. I think I scored like 2 more goals the rest of the season. But the one that I think of the most is actually a low light, which will be appreciated here. And it wasn't really a low light, but I get shit for it all the time. So we were playing flag football. I was covering Hoban. Hoban runs a
This is great.
Yeah. So talk about the league. Hoban does a fly route. I'm on him. I forget who's the quarterback, but they underthrew him. And I stop and I go back and I get 2 hands on my shoulders and thrown to the ground by Hoban. Hoban goes in, makes the catch. Flag comes in, offensive pass interference, penalty, 5-yard penalty, whatever. Zanzarella and all the guys in my house proceed to still give me shit to this day of the time that Hoban kicked my ass or like Hoban threw me down.
So what year was this? Was this freshman year?
This would have been junior, senior year.
Okay. Oh.
And it was like, oh yeah, we played flag football. Remember when Hoban kicked Robbie's ass? And it's like, I got the penalty. The call, like, he wasn't like he scored on me. It wasn't like he mossed me. But yeah, I still hear about that one. So that's the one where I think of like my intramural experience. That's the first one that comes to mind. So
that is great fodder for this league. Happy with yourself. How has that not come up in the years the decade you've been in this league?
First time on the pod.
Wow, that's amazing.
Crazy. That was also a 2 tight end formation. That play, believe it or not. Interesting. Bringing it full circle.
Quickly for me, I didn't even think of it until you mentioned your individual accolades, Guru. But in our senior year, the co-ed basketball title game, Casey Greer, Steve, they were on this team where they thought they won every year. I was on a team with Britt Bollinger, Connor, John Lamb, John Lamb's brother, Rebecca Lockhart, and Rebecca White. I was quite literally the 6th man. We had 6 players on the team. We beat them, I would say handily, and I scored 17 of the 51 points, so about a third of the points. And after the game, Casey Greer was crying in the hallway in the manager station, Greer, as you remember fondly. And she looked at me crying and said, "Since when do you score?"
A little bit of a double meaning there too, I think.
Yeah. Well, there was also the time, I don't know if this qualifies as intramurals, but I did write the line about how I said I was confident I could beat any female on campus in a race, non-scholarship athlete. And Casey Greer took me up on that challenge. We ran a suicide, and I ran the back half down and backwards because I was winning by so much. Moving right along, the best matchup in week 4 of the Sports Edge Fantasy Football League is blank. Your options: Rob against Hath, Steve against you, Guru, me against Hoban, Pete against Walsh, Kess against Zans. Robbie, let's start with you.
So I got to go with the 2 versus 3, Pete versus Walsh. Walsh coming off a loss, so a tight one, opportunity to bounce back. Tight in this league. I think only one winless team, only one undefeated team. So every week counts. It's projected to be tight, and we'll see this matchup again in week 13. But gotta see it. Pete's team, of course, right now slide to have 2 tight ends. So always excited to see how that goes too.
Guru, who you got? What's the best matchup this week?
I mean, it's rivalry week in the Eisner house. It's got to be Steve versus Eisner. I don't know how I go any other way. I feel weird because I also picked the stud of the week from my team last year.
You're selfish. You're a narcissist. I love it. It's great.
You try not to do that. We talk about that actively, you and I. But I mean, like it's Steve versus me. I've already got text going with Steve. It's game on.
I actually that is my pick as well. And I didn't even know that he's the last person you saw in person. So an added element that is podcast against Steve. We always root for our pod teammate there. Your favorite bar during college was blank. Guru, start with you.
Yeah, and I thought of one more nickname that had a shtick that I feel like I should get out there that you guys will like. Were you guys WWF fans growing up? Did you watch like all that? Okay. So do you remember? I'm gonna get her name wrong, but like Jen Woland, was that her name? Jen something. She always dressed in like she was going to a business meeting.
Oh, yes. I don't know her name. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Jennifer something. Anyway, we called her the corporation.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that.
You
And
told me
every
this one. That's
time
amazing.
she would go by, we would all sing "No Chance." Which was the song that they would play when Vince McMahon came out. So she was literally walking by us, no idea who we were at the time. We were just going, "No chance in hell, you got." It was the corporation coming by. So I thought of that.
Amazing.
Favorite bar in college. So short-lived, but Al's was money. Was money. My favorite Al's story is the only time we got thrown out of Al's, it was because the bar was closing and Mike Falzone refused to leave because we had the high score on the game, the touch screen, photo hunt. We had photo hunt going, we had a killer round going, and the bar was closing. And the guy physically picked Mike Falzone up and threw him out of Al's. One of my favorite Al's.
Can we get a Mike Falzone update? What is he doing with his life?
The last time I saw him was Renzi's wedding. He was doing good. I think he had 2 daughters, if I remember correctly. He was married. Pretty normal life for Mr. Falzone, which I don't know. That could have went a lot of different
I didn't
ways.
attend our 20-year, 15-year, or 10-year reunion, but Falzone, if he was there, he's on my list of people I'd actually like to see, and that's a short list. Robbie, favorite bar during college?
I mean, obviously the grape holds a special place in all of our hearts, just being able to walk to the bar. Also, Prio getting beat up by the bouncer on his 21st birthday, and instead of fighting back, just argued with him the entire time.
I didn't know that happened either.
Are you serious? Dude, this was...
Wait, he got in a fight because he didn't have his ID and the bouncer wouldn't let him in? Like, what happened?
All right, so I'm going to try to tell this story quickly, right? So basically, it's Prio's 21st birthday. Him and Mikey DeStefano were the last ones of our friends to turn 21.
Now they're all Fairfield couple there, by the way, Mikey and Carla.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the bar. They hadn't gotten their new IDs yet. And so I turned to the guy, though. I was like, nope, this is expired. Take it back. So Hoffman's girlfriend at the time, if you remember, was a Fairfield cop.
Oh, and yes. I was going to say, yeah.
So they went, and Mikey went, they went over, they're like, hey, here's our ID. Can you just tell this guy, we're legit? It's not a thing. So she went over, got them in, whatever. They walk in, and everyone's like, oh, Mikey Prio, you made it in. And Mikey goes, yeah, because this fucking douchebag wouldn't let us in. And Mikey says this, right? The guy, for whatever reason, thought Prio said, and is staring at Prio and following him around the bar the entire night. So Prio finally goes over. He's like, hey, man, I'm sorry, we got the cop involved. We just really wanted to get in. It's our birthday, blah, blah. And the guy hauls off and punches Prio in the face.
Oh, my God.
And Prio's reaction is to go, what are you doing? The guy grabs Prio by the chain, rips his chain off, and hits him 2 more times. And Prio's literally just going, dude, what the fuck? Just eating these punches. Rob Marseglia comes out and
oh my God, he gets a reference every year in this pod.
I forget who. It might be somebody. It might be another manager. I forget who it was. I had, full disclosure, had gone back early to smoke a bong beforehand, so I missed most of the details.
Surprise.
Yeah, that happened. Now, flash forward to mock wedding. The guy had gotten fired, but he was bar backing that night. I was wasted, and I was just yelling. I was like, "This guy's a fucking douchebag. He's not even supposed to be working there," and I got kicked out for that. So that was the first bar I ever got kicked out of. But yeah, so obviously, the grape has a special place, but gotta go Clubhouse. I mean,
wow, freshman year,
the ultimate freshman bar. My first time ever using a chalked ID, my first time ever losing a chalked ID, and then calling my parents' house and saying, "Hey, we found this ID," and my dad calling me up. He's like, "Yeah, they found your ID." At a bar where there was a shooting on Saturday. I go, "Dad, we go on Thursdays. The shootings are on Saturdays." And he's like, "You're a fucking idiot." So all kinds of fun stuff. So
I don't have good stories. You guys are great. I'd pick
Clubhouse
too.
One of my favorite Clubhouse stories was famous RPR Recplex Rich famously drove to the Clubhouse one time and then came out of the Clubhouse and his car was on bricks.
Oh,
the tires gone, all 4 tires stolen off his car, just up on bricks outside Clubhouse. True story.
Wow. Do you have an RPR update?
No, I'll tell you my RPR update. It was pretty interesting. So with this podcast, by the way, we started off, we said, this is going to be a 10-minute podcast. I love it.
Yeah, well, we got good stories. You guys are bringing it tonight.
So the year MT and I moved out to Colorado, we did a road trip. We drove out. We took a trip just to make a trip out of it. And we decided to go the southern route because most of us have seen the northern states, and Rich was living in Atlanta. So we went all the way down to Atlanta and then started coming west. Rich gave us 2 unbelievable nights. I mean, we went out hardcore, like we were still in college. He was like, all right. And that was in August, and we were getting married in January. And we were
Yeah,
like,
trust me, I remember January wedding in Denver. I remember I was there. It was not warm.
Yeah, actually, it was the day of the wedding. It was 60 degrees.
Yeah.
We were like, all right, see you at the wedding. He's like, see you at the wedding, and then we left, and then we got a no response to the wedding. Like 2 months later, didn't hear from him after that.
Haven't no update since.
No, then I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I had a work thing in Atlanta, and we connected and had a couple beers. But
so he's still in Atlanta. Is
still in Atlanta, last I heard, and he had a pretty long term. I think it was girlfriend. I don't think they had gotten married yet, but it seemed like one of those situations where they just weren't going to get married, but they were going to be kind of together. That was my RPR update.
When did the Recplex open an office in Atlanta?
Yeah, great question. Great question.
This ostensibly is a fantasy football podcast, so we will at least end on this. I forgot who we started with on that one, but who cares? The winner of the Sports Edge this year will be Robbie. We'll start with you.
Look, I'm feeling good about my team. Got to have confidence, but I understand it's a long season. Like I said earlier, I've got some depth concerns. I only kept the minimum amount of guys, and one of them was, what's his face on the Samuel on the Bills, and hasn't seen.
I actually thought that wasn't bad. I thought he'd be a lot better, but yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't been great, especially because everybody else on the Bills seems to be eating. But I gotta say, if Pete's team can get healthy, they intrigue me. He's got Josh Allen, #1 fantasy player right now. He's got Barkley, and then he's got Debo, Pacheco, Kill, and Devontae Smith, varying degrees of health. Pacheco's on his IR, but I think that's a team that's interesting. Danzig, I think your team's interesting as well. Mahomes hasn't been Mahomes, but don't worry, you have 3 other QBs on your roster.
Yeah, well, we're struggling right now. Okay, we're struggling. Gotta get healthy.
You've got one healthy McCaffrey. If you had 2, I think you'd be in decent shape.
I need a running back badly.
I think
I made an offer to a league manager today, and I'm not kidding. I offered a dozen donuts and a bag of footballs, and my offer was declined. It's a true story. I appreciate that, but I will take that as you're picking yourself, as you should.
Yeah, me or Pete, I'd say.
Okay. All right. Guru, who you got?
Pete worries me. But
boring, but I had Pete too.
Wow.
Yeah, I picked Pete too.
Did we do this in the preseason? Because I forgot. If we did, I forgot who I picked.
We didn't. We did the roster construction thing, but we didn't make any actual predictions.
Okay. I'm going to be a good teammate, as Robbie remembers from our radio days. I'm picking the Guru. I got you. Let's go. A little faith in your pod partner.
I couldn't pick myself with 3 different categories of.
You could have. You should have. I'm disappointed. I was proud of you earlier. Now I'm disappointed.
That's nickname Guru. There you go.
Yeah. Right. My goodness. Robbie, it's a pleasure to see you. Thanks for doing this. It's been too long. Thanks for listening to the podcast or watching the podcast this year. It's glad our percentage of listeners was a significant uptick, and it's just having you actually watch now. Right. So thank you.
I'm now a subscriber to a Noon Bear 610. So
there you go. There you go. Well, if it was just on my actual one, then it'd be all like what my daughter watches on YouTube, which is every day. I think we had 3 straight hours of Peppa Pig tales today. So we got a hot streak going there. Guru, always a pleasure. Thank you. We'll do this again next week. Thanks for watching.